Hi, good day, people. Muihan here again. New week, new beginning, and we are in another episode of Elephant in the Room. Hi, Taranjit.
Hi, Buyan. How are you doing?
Let's go to the opening reel, and we'll see you right after this. Hey, Taranjit. Welcome back.
Hi, Buyan.
How are you been, man?
Very good, very good. It's been an exciting weekend. Did absolutely nothing, which was nice. But preparing for this week, and the show was absolutely exciting. Thinking about what we should be talking about and what are some of the elephants in the room to bring out this week.
Cool. So maybe just to get our audience out there who have just joined us, nice to see all of you again. You can comment at the below section just to say hi, so that we know you're here. And that's what. Number two, if you can do us a kind favor just to do a watch party so that our audience reach will be greater. And if you don't mind doing that for us, thank you so much, right? So, Parajit, I was thinking, based on our conversation last week, we had this idea of talking quite a bit on the blended workforce, between permanent and contractual. And I think you also spoke about that, I think on Wednesday or Thursday. I think it was Wednesday before government, right? So maybe let's focus on this. I thought we would really deep dive into it more strongly today and also look at all the crux of it in that sense. Maybe you can give your perspective per se.
Sure. Thank you, Muyan. And it's always great to come on board. I'm looking forward to this evening. So a couple of things were playing out. The blended workforce and what it means for us as individual employers and employees. And you see, and in my mind, you will see more and more of that playing out. What will also be quite emphatic is how this relationship will change. The relationship between the individual and the employee. And what was interesting is sometime back we had Zohrab Chong coming in and highlighting in a note that he had sent to us that we need to relook at the skills from a HR perspective and relook at skills.
Maybe hold a bit. Maybe I pull that up. You give me one moment.
Sure.
Yeah, I think it's somewhere was Friday, right? So let me just share that. I think I like to maybe just focus on that.
Let's do that.
Yes. Okay. Right.
Yep. So whilst we're having that out, a couple of things is that we are looking at here would be a critical discussion around the competencies of HR as well. Do we need HR permanent staff, or can we start looking at potential outsourcing of some of the staff there? Whether it be freelancers or giggers. Sometime back, we had the likes of Shamila talking about this. Can we now bring giggers into this particular environment? And amongst other things that comes out would be also the area of competence. What type of competencies do we now require? And this is to Zohrab's point. The competencies around how do we now do remote management given the current situation that we are in? Digital facilitation, how effective will that be? Do I even have the ability to do something like that? I've never done that before. Managing of digital applications, whether it be Teams or Zoom or whatever the deal is. How do we effectively do that whilst driving a collaborative workforce, collaborative environment? Muihan, what are your thoughts on that?
So let me just pull this up. I thought it would be nice to just show this. So I think Zohrab was talking about this last Friday. He said that the question is to trigger the change and mindset adoption by companies towards integrating independent workers, one-off or short-term projects or retainer. That is what we call the giggers, so to say, or the contractual staff. why wouldn't organization want Avengers to make things work for you at a fraction of the operation cost? I think that was a very nice perspective where we left off. And I think I actually, to be fair to the audience, I know Zohrab quite a bit. I think maybe I should get him on the phone and maybe just call him in for a chat. Maybe Taranjit, you give your perspective, or I'll do that in a short while.
Sure, let's do that. So a couple of things are playing out here. Whether or not HR has the required competencies, by and large, in my mind, and I'll be very candid about this, HR that we see today, by and large, are HR practitioners that are still of an older perspective in terms of their mindsets, in terms of the way they work. Not all, but most of them that I'm familiar with. This then begs the question: do I need HR in the way that it's currently playing out, or can I now start to shift boundaries even from a HR side? And that's where I think this Avengers team comes into play. Can I make it more effective? Can I make it more poignant? And more importantly, can I use less people but of a higher quality to drive the outcomes that I'm looking for? Muihan?
Okay. Maybe before I give you my perspective, I just dropped Zohrab a note. Hope he returns the message, and then we can get him on. Before I return your perspective, I just wanted to do a shout out to our audience for those who have commented. We have Dr. Michael Heng from Singapore, and thank you for being back on, Dr. Michael. In fact, we will give everybody a surprise at the end of this show. Regards to Dr. Michael, okay? I also have my Mind Heart Connection friend, Hilson Yap. Hilson, thanks for tuning in. Big shout out to you. Hilson is a great service provider in the team building space, right? So coming to back to our question, to the point of blended workforce and why and how, I had maybe just to put into a broader perspective that there are actually pros and cons to looking at it, in fact. And I think there's enough research to show people who, under this kind of working arrangement, report higher satisfaction level or engagement level. So I know one of the key challenges in most companies in HR, in management, is to see how to raise the engagement level of their staff. But we also have found that when we talk to giggers, their engagement level is actually very, very focused and also higher. And technically, they are happier people. So, and there's enough research to show when you're happy, you obviously do things better. You put your heart to it, your passion grows, and then the delivery or result is number one. That is one of the key benefits per se. But the other one that I was looking at was also because I've been looking at this for the last 24 to 36 months. One of the areas I find that giving this kind of arrangement actually allows the company a lot of flexibility to choose the right skill set that is needed, that can be easily deployed through different geographies, different subsidiaries and things like that. So I think that is also another key pertinent one that we cannot miss per se. One added consideration or limitation, and I want to hear some from you, Taranjit, is that, of course, the area of control comes, right? And I think that we also talked about this last week, whether our kind of controls are more pertinent, as well as also how do we manage the performance of the giggers in that sense, because they are no longer subjected to our performance management system. And also, what about their continual development per se? So I think the whole idea of treating them as part of our supply, our workforce, our ecosystem, as well as they being contractual, nomadic, or method, I think that's a big question mark. What do you think about that, Taranjit?
Absolutely. And to be fair, I think the infrastructure, the talent management infrastructure that we have today may not necessarily be robust enough to take that into account. A couple of things are playing out. So, for example, when we talk about the benefits, we talk about the way in which we accord benefits. It becomes a little bit awkward because we normally either say you are working with us full time or you're not. And if you are working with us full time, these are the benefits that I will accord to you. If you're not, then this is what we get. But unfortunately, if we are now moving down this path, there will probably be less and less people taking on these benefits and more people taking on other things. So we have this consideration here. The other one is how do we now start to measure the way I pay? It's in relative to what? So you have got noted firms out there who do compensation surveys, salary surveys, and there are big firms out there. Now, if the nature of my workforce changes, which from all intents and purposes it is, how do we now go out there to pay these people? What would be a competitive market pay given the type of work that is required from them? In the old days, we will have job grades, and those job grades will be determined by the complexity of roles, and those complexity of roles will be determined by the accountabilities, very clear. And on that basis, we then drive a particular pay point. But today, that's going to be very, very different. And therefore, the whole rewards philosophy will probably need to be touched on. Forget about development. That's another discussion, and I'm sure we'll talk about that in a bit. But just talking about pay will be quite a different challenge altogether. Mihan?
Great. Hey, sorry, I got distracted a bit. Guess what? We actually get Zohrab in, and he replied, and I want to bring him on now. I'm so excited. I know it's like just give me a quick second to do that. All right?
Sure.
It's so exciting. Hi, Zohrab. Can you hear me?
Hi, Muyan. Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Great.
Hi, Taranjit.
Hi, Zohrab. Welcome on board, Zohrab.
Thank you. Yeah, I hope I'm decently clad after running back.
No worries.
After receiving a message.
No worries.
Zohrab, we were thinking that probably since you asked a very good question or put a very good input last week, we wanted to maybe just get your perspective live. And since I know you personally, why not we just do that per se. But maybe for our audience, maybe you can do a very short introduction about yourself and your background a bit before we dive into some questions. Yeah.
All right. Sure, Ken. Thanks. So very briefly, my name is Zohrab Chong. I have left the corporate I left corporate world after spending more than 24 years last year. Now on my own, focusing on people development as well as advisory areas. And I really loved working with people. And for me, my passion is about developing people for the people. Right. So back to you, Muyan.
Okay, great. So maybe I will just start off with a question, then I'll bring Taranjit back on So we wanted to know, in your perspective, I think when you talk about the blended workforce, the Avengers in that sense, and you are a good, I think you are a good person to represent because you spend quite significant time in the corporate world before coming out to become on the other side, provider side in that sense, right? Maybe when you were in corporate per se, what was some of the key considerations for you to do this or not to do this, or even when you wanted to do this in a more bigger scale way to bring in more contractual staff or to have that nomadic working arrangements and so forth. Maybe you can share some of your experience or your perspective or concerns as maybe the HR organization, HR person in that sense.
Okay, sure. Glad to be able to chip in my experience and thoughts. Now, I mentioned last week about blended workforce and modern Avengers. Really, it goes back to in the corporate sector. I think a lot of times we are quite restricted in terms of how many non-permanent employee can we bring in order to deliver what we want as an outcome. And we also struggle to get the best of talent. Right, it depends on which industry you are. It's really critical out there, and often than not, we know, for example, in the IT space, many companies probably at a bit on the forefront, because there are a lot of IT talents that we can source and bring it as an outsource partner. In terms of HR, I think most of the areas, besides outsourcing some of the functions to another company to run, a good example will probably be in an area where you and I are now, where you tap on the experience or expertise of different facilitators or trainers that can bring in to help things to happen. I must say that the change has happened. And if you look at companies who are more used to agency models, that has in a way given a head start to organization to start thinking about whether a blended workforce will work. I use the analogy of Avengers in this sense. Was we know operation cost is rising, and we know we want to grow business, and talent is very scarce. So why can't we look into a model where we look at the best, just like what Batman does, right? The signal goes up to the sky, and then suddenly you get the best of resource coming together and deliver, and off they go. And that's probably cheaper, and we can look at the cost efficiency of that as well. So that's my sharing.
Excellent. I like it. I like it. And I like your analogy of Batman. I'm a major fan. The old series, yeah, with Adam West and what have you. So, and I really like the fact that you've got the back signal there, and you then call on the resources that you require. Absolutely. But you also then have a converse argument, Zohrab, around what does that now mean for the type of people I have in-house? How many people should I be having in-house? What type of quality of people should I be having in-house? Does that really make it worth our while? Yes, whilst we are reducing costs, absolutely, and there's a level of cost containment, but I also may no longer control or own some of the stuff that is coming up. What are your views on that, Zohrab?
Okay, so I'll take that in two parts. One part is whether how many percent, or what should be the core composition, right? To me, we cannot run away. As an organization, as a company, you still need your core people, where a lot of your key strategies, your key IP, intellectual properties, need to be kept within the team. And you need to now begin to develop and make sure that you have the best of the best.
Yes.
You keep them, right? And the rest, where you can see, hey, maybe I don't really need this person so much, and it's so hard to find this kind of person, then start thinking about the blended workforce model. That I believe should be able to make it better and make it work for any organization.
Yes.
All right. So the second part, just rewrite. So second part was on the matter of how to integrate. Is that how do you integrate them?
So the question is, what about in terms of people that may not necessarily have the type of capabilities or the type of requirements that you're looking at? So
from a company context, I think first is, as any human or people-focused centric employer, look at your team. Who are the best? This is time, develop them. Invest in those talents that you want to retain. I think we cannot escape from that. I believe in development, and we should invest in our people. And when we cannot, then let's start to explore out. And if you have a team of people that probably may not be able to be retained or do not have the skill sets that you want, be it for today and tomorrow, then I still believe that you can do what one of my previous employer does. I think we equip them with the necessary skills so that they can go out and find another living, another opportunity. And who knows, maybe that person may come back as your independent workforce, who can be brought in as a certain task that you've been used before, but now you just need someone. And that person may also be very happy, to be honest. Oh, now I don't have a full-time job. I need coming as and when I still get paid, and I can do multiple other jobs.
Yes, so that's absolutely, I think that's brilliant. And I'm looking at the comments here by Dr. Heng. Interestingly enough, he talked about we should be talking about empowerment and equipping people for this rather than managing people in this regard. So you're absolutely right, and thank you, Muihan, for putting that on board. I think again, two things will now play out here, Zohrab. And since we have you online and you've been a very key listener to the show, how do you see this playing out in the immediacy? We currently are in a state of crisis. We currently don't even know whether we have the ability to sustain ourselves. God forbid MCO increases for another 2 weeks, and I'm hearing that right now, and I'm absolutely I'm a bit concerned about what that means for us as employees and what does that mean for us as employers. So how do you relate this to the immediacy, Zohrab?
Well, I think I am in the same boat. I don't have a crystal ball to tell exactly what can happen. What we can do, I mean, this is going back to the circle of control, is whoever you are. First, let's look at the employers. I think employers as a company, you need to do whatever that you need to do now to make sure that your cash flow and your operation remains. You may want to explore how can I tap on or collaborate with other potential partners out there who can still execute, for example, my sale or my different supply chain to make sure that consumption or the business goes on. From an employee perspective, my advice would be for those who are in this situation, use this opportunity to tap on new skills, to learn skills that is not only relevant for your current roles, but go into what is really required going ahead. I mean, we are now, well, today we are using this three-way conversation. First time I'm introduced to StreamYard. Things like this, are you comfortable to embrace this change that is daunting upon all of us right now, without having to say we come tomorrow?
Yes, absolutely. Well played. Wihan, back to you.
Yeah, maybe, well, time flies. Actually, we have more to cover, but nevertheless, so happy to get you because I thought it will be better to just talk to you directly rather than just me and Taranjit trying to think what you say, what you shouldn't say. Maybe one last portion because I know you for some time and I know one of the key things that you've been going around corporates or organization is this area of getting or teaching people to or managers or business leaders to actually look at facilitation in a meeting, in a workshop, in an environment in that sense. But I think in moving forward, or while we also adopted this idea of blended workforce, I think one of the key consideration is also it now makes more sense to do blended workshop because the people that we're going to bring in contractually or the independent workers would also be supporting our organization remotely in that sense. So I think we cannot discount the fact that the remote agenda or the digitalization of it from it, of course, that can be applied to our own workforce as well. But since you are here and I wanted to just tap your brain, what is your perspective then on moving, let's say, facilitation as a skill from a face-to-face classroom, meeting room, boardroom perspective to a digital environment like any video conferencing or even meeting place out? Maybe you can give that perspective, especially from the point of view to one, the employers' time, what they need to do to train or to culture their workforce, and maybe as individuals as well, how can we adopt this faster, better, and more effective? Yeah.
Wow. Okay, well, actually, thank you for this. It's my pet subject to talk about. We can talk long on this, but let me just make it quick. I know time is. So first, we need to appreciate what is facilitation to begin with. I think facilitation has to be understood as different from a pure delivery, a presenter or a trainer. What facilitators do are really to guide, to nurture, to navigate the room, whoever there is, to an outcome. I think that's something that we need to be very clear. It needs to be interactive. It's not I say, you do, you say, I keep quiet. That's not the way. It is getting everybody involved in a discussion or whatever there is for a common outcome. So going back to your two, as an employer, I think first thing, employers will also need to have this change of mindset that I now need to equip people with facilitation skills rather than just a presentation skill if you are just doing that. For me, facilitation is an essence of a managerial skill. We facilitate, we deliver results through the team that we work with, either internally or across the stakeholders. We need to facilitate that. We are not going to give direction. We need to facilitate so that the employees, and what Michael, Dr. Heng was saying, we need to then transfer this to inspire, to empower them so that they can deliver. That's what facilitation does. So that's one thing. In terms of employees, the managers or whoever that's been doing this in the past, I think start to be comfortable to embrace technology. As I said, we cannot run away. If you have the right facilitation skill, it doesn't matter whether you're in a room with someone or you're here and you are, I'm here in PJ, you're somewhere else. We can still have a conversation without losing any moment of dullness, as you said, right? We need to be able to come up with new skills. How do we inject some fun? How do we interact? How do we get contributions in? How do we manage the chatbot while you're doing a live show like this, for example? Doing multiple other things. I think that's what we need to start looking at.
Okay, cool. Hey, we have run out of time. Zohrab, thanks again for coming in. We hope to see you. Maybe in coming weeks, we can host you for a full-length show, and then we can deep dive more into different perspective. But we thank you so much for coming on so short notice and helping us to address some of these things. So do take care, stay safe, and see you some other time, Zohrab. Bye.
Thank you for it. Stay safe too. Bye.
Okay, that was Zohrab, and thank you so much for his contribution. Yes, Taranjit, we have come to the end of the show. Maybe you wanted to give 1 or 2 points to wrap all this up, and maybe succinctly put it back for our viewers so that they can take home something and put it into practice.
Absolutely. So a couple of things come out, quite honestly, just listening to Zohrab, and what a pleasant surprise that was, bringing him on live. But a couple of things play out. One is the need for speed, undoubtedly. That's the first thing. The second thing is the need to be able to think about different competencies. The old competencies still stand, but they may not be as relevant as what they are moving forward. So to Zohrab's point around facilitation, I know of a university that I'm quite close to, and they are already now thinking about, you know what, the ability to now have the lecturers present in a way where you're talking about one-to-many via the technology is now becoming more and more apparent. You're no longer getting bodily feedback from the students that are sitting out in the rows that are in front of you, but instead I'm now doing a one-to-many. It's almost akin to a TV broadcast. So guess what? They're now thinking about how can I bring in newscasters or consulting newscasters from the old days to come in and teach my lecturers. How do we now address the people in this regard? So it's a very different skills, and this is to Zohrab's point. The other one that goes out very emphatically is the area around rewards and that whole spectrum of talent management in that space, the infrastructure to support this. These are the 3 things that came out in my mind today, Muihan. Back to you.
Okay, so thank you once again. We are very happy to have see you again, a new week, new beginning as I started. And I promise you one surprise. And probably if you check our page out, you already know this surprise. It's not such a great surprise. So this Wednesday, we have the pleasure of hosting Dr. Michael Hing from Singapore. And we want you to tune in. And in fact, if you can find the link somewhere below, above, you can actually start putting your questions and comments. So Dr. Michael will be coming very strongly to give us the perspective of what is happening across the causeway. Because since we are locked down here, or we are in MCO in Malaysia, we also wanted to hear out loud from our Singaporean perspective that since we also, some of us have a business and as well as working relationship in that matter, right? So with that, we'll see you tomorrow again at 6 o'clock.
A shout out to Jack Tan. He's just there with us. So thanks a lot, Jack. Looking forward to hearing from you tomorrow, and also to the rest who are on the chat group. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.